Feeling like a misfit or too emotional as a man. There's a quiet pain that many sensitive men carry, often hidden behind a polite smile or self-deprecating joke. It's the feeling of being too much or not enough all at once, too emotional, too soft, too affected by the suffering of the world. This deep emotional responsiveness, so often misread as weakness, is actually a gift. But when it isn't recognized or valued, it can make a man feel like a misfit in his own skin. If you've ever been told to man up, grow thicker skin, or stop overthinking, you're not alone. These are the voices of a culture that has forgotten how to honor the full spectrum of masculinity. Mainstream society has long promoted a limited definition of what it means to be a man. Strength, power, emotional control, and assertiveness are highly valued. Vulnerability, empathy, and softness are often perceived as suspect or inferior. These inherited norms don't just shape the way others treat men, they shape the way men see themselves. Dr. Ronald Levant, one of the foremost researchers on masculinity, coined the term normative male alexithymia to describe the emotional disconnect many men feel. It's not a pathology, but a product of social conditioning. Boys are taught explicitly and implicitly to hide their feelings. By adolescent, many have internalized the idea that being emotionally expressive is unmanly. But here's the truth. Stoicism is not synonymous with strength. In fact, denying emotion has been directly linked to higher rates of depression, substance abuse, and suicide in men. Emotional suppression isn't resilience. It's a form of slow erosion. Highly sensitive men experience the world with more depth and intensity. They often notice subtle shifts in tone, facial expression, and energy. They process interactions deeply and tend to reflect inwardly before acting. According to Dr. Elaine Aron, this trait known as sensory processing sensitivity is found in approximately 15 to 20% of the population across genders. What appears to be hesitation or softness from the outside is often a profound display of emotional intelligence on the inside. Sensitive men tend to have high levels of empathy and intuition. They think before they speak. They can sit with complexity rather than rushing toward black and white answers. This capacity is desperately needed today. In families, sensitive men make nurturing, present fathers. In relationships, they offer depth and emotional availability. In leadership roles, they model authentic power, the kind that listens, collaborates, and cultivates trust. Meet Michael, a teacher in Colorado who once questioned his manhood because of how deeply he cried after a student's graduation speech. For years, he hid his emotions behind a stoic exterior. But after discovering he was in HSP, he began to see his tears not as a flaw, but as a reflection of his deep caring for others. Today, his students and peers view him as a compassionate role model, not despite his sensitivity, but because of it. Or listen to Dwayne, a retired firefighter who endured years of trauma on the job. What kept him grounded wasn't shutting down. It was his commitment to journaling, therapy, and speaking openly about the emotional toll of his work. He now leads resilience workshops for other first responders, bringing empathy into one of the most stoic professions. These are not weak men. These are not exceptions. These are men who reclaim the parts of themselves that society told them to hide. And by doing so, they're modeling a fuller, more human version of manhood. One of the most healing experiences for any man is to be witnessed without judgment. When you share your story and someone says, "Me too," a lifelong weight can begin to lift. Many sensitive men suffer in silence, believing they're the only ones who feel this much or struggle this hard. But in communities of men, especially HSP focus groups, new truths begin to emerge. You're not broken, you're not weak, and you're not alone. What men have access to safe spaces where emotional honesty is honored, remarkable things happen. They begin to speak their truth with greater confidence. They stop apologizing for needing quiet or solitude. They show up in their lives more grounded and more attuned to their purpose. To be strong is not to dominate, but to relate. To be powerful is not to control, but to connect. Every man deserves to live fully, not half alive behind a mask. Reclaiming your emotional self does not mean giving up your masculinity. It means expanding it, redefining it on your own terms. This is the new frontier of manhood. Dr. Kristen Neff, who has pioneered work on self-compassion, writes, "Men can be fierce and tender, confident and humble, protective and nurturing. We are wired for both." Her research indicates that self-compassion is a stronger predictor of emotional resilience in men than self-esteem. So the next time you feel something very deeply, don't apologize. Don't shrink. That feeling is not your enemy. It is your compass. It is what makes you human and what makes you, you.